YouGov has just released a new poll on British opinion on immigration, and it shows that the British people are more interested in culture than race. So YouGov have just released a new poll with data from between the 24th and the 25th of April 2018, and they're comparing that data to March 2017 and August 2016. And there's a few interesting things about this data that I thought I'd just quickly go over with you today. And the first is, on the first page, the first question. It says, generally speaking, do you think the level of immigration into Britain over the last 10 years has been too high, too low, or about right? In 2016, the total too high was 70%. 70%. Isn't it amazing that the vast majority of British people think that immigration is too high, and yet the government keeps on importing hundreds of thousands of people? Where's the logic there? The total too low, people who said it was too low, 2%. 2% of British people think it's too low, and yet more and more and more people, it's insanity. March 2017, 65% of people still said it was too high, and the total of people who thought it was too low increased by a percentage point to 3%. And then April 2018, 63% think it's too high, and 4% think it's too low. Isn't it funny how as every year goes by, the immigrant population increases, and so does the amount of people that think immigration is too low. Every year a percentage point, it keeps going up. I mean, that is the nature of demographic change. I mean, it's going to sway public opinion sooner or later, and obviously it's going to affect democracy and the results of our democratic elections as well. So that's interesting to see. I mean, even 63% of people think immigration is too high. 4% think it's too low. 1% of people think it's much too low. I mean, how many people do these people want in? I mean, the people that think it's much too low obviously want some kind of negative consequence or some fundamental change in Britain, because much too low, I mean, the economy can't handle it. They know the economy can't handle it. So why else would they want more people in than to change the culture? But I digress. The interesting thing about this poll is I saw two tweets by Matthew Goodwin, and Matthew Goodwin's a professor and an author, and well, I remember at university, all I ever heard about was Matthew bloody Goodwin. He's obsessed with the far right, Brexit, yada, yada, yada. So he always talks about this kind of stuff. But he mentions here on his tweet that British people were asked, do immigrants from the following countries make a positive or negative contribution to British life? So this is based on the idea of a net positive. And it says here, Australians plus 45, Irish plus 40, Germans plus 38, Americans plus 36, Polish plus 28, Indians plus 25, Jamaicans plus 18, and then we get into the negatives. Pakistanis, minus 2. I wonder if that's got anything to do with rape gangs. Bangladeshis, minus 3. Nigerians, minus 11. Romanians, minus 18. A lot of people, I know people from Romania who would be quite sad to see that, because the Romanian people will always tell you that the reason people have such a negative opinion of the Romanians is because of the Romanian gypsies, not the Romanians. But obviously it's affected public opinion. And then Somalis are the least popular, minus 21. Here's what's interesting about this data. We're looking at the Australians, the Irish, the Germans, the Americans, maybe not the Americans, but at least the top three, most people would presume are white. But then you get to the Indians and Jamaicans, plus 18, plus 25. They're not white. They're quite obviously not white. And yet the Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, Nigerians are doing badly, and the Romanians, who are white, are doing badly. And think what this tells us. To people like Hope Not Hate, and all these nonsensical anti-fascist groups and these pro-immigration groups and lobbies that just make money from the government by investigating people like me and making up hate crimes. What I would say to these people is, obviously people have an issue with immigration for economic reasons, but the data shows us as well that people have a problem with immigration for cultural reasons, because there is no correlation with race in this data. No correlation at all. And Matthew Goodwin goes on to say Britain now has an opportunity to reform its immigration policy, but what type of immigration do the British people want? This was what was asked in the poll. So the poll says, to what extent should the following groups of people be allowed to come and live in Britain? So low educated and low skilled workers, minus 26, people don't want them. Relatives of existing migrants, 4, I mean, fair enough in some cases. Refugees fleeing persecution, war, 26. I mean, the British people have a heart. It's just a shame that most of these refugees fleeing war aren't refugees fleeing war. Wealthy investors, 41. High educated, high skilled workers, 53. International students, 57. For some reason, people are really like those international students. And at the top of the list is NHS workers. The NHS workers one's an interesting one because, sure, NHS workers are important. Sure, the NHS is important, but there's two issues here. Why aren't we training our own people? And secondly, why are so many people accessing the NHS in the first place? But that's the topic of another video that I'll probably end up doing soon. So, the take home is, Britain isn't racist. We're not interested, according to the data, so much in the race of people as we are in the culture of people. Culture and economics is the main driving factor behind public opinion on immigration. Fact. If you want to see more from me and the rest of the Rebel team, remember to download our app on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store, and like and subscribe.